there is a huge opportunity out there if the apprenticeship levy, the percentage of the levy that can currently be used for suppliers and contractors was increased. This is something I spoke about with the Chancellor 2 days ago in London. I think there are a number of people who are raising the same question with him. The more that levy can be used for other SMEs in the supply chain, the greater the number of opportunities available to young people. And this, I think, would be something that the Federation of Small Business would support. So I'm striding towards Sam, who is the Gloucestershire representative, to tell us how much that sort of thing would make a difference to your members.
Definitely, that would definitely be a help, because I think there was a feeling that the apprenticeship momentum was dying a bit with SMEs before coronavirus even happened, and it needed some stimulus, and maybe something like what you're talking about there would really help. But while I do have the microphone, I just want to say something about Gloucester generally, because I work for the FSB, but I'm also a Gloucester resident, and I've been working in the city just a couple of years less than you, Richard. I came here in 2012 for family reasons, and I came from a place which is probably difficult to mention in this room, Bath. And as well as slagging the rugby team off, everybody that I knew in Bath was saying, oh, you ain't liking Gloucester. Oh, no, not after living in the Bath area. But it didn't take me long to fall in love with this place, actually. And I think it's very special. I think it's part of a special county. And I think I may have been lucky enough to be here at the best possible time, because I think the Keys has been remarkable. I think the Keys has instilled confidence amongst businesses of all sizes, as well as the residents. And I'll say that about the residents as well, because funny enough, I noticed Richard picked up on it twice. When I first came here and got to talk to people about, tell me a bit about what Gloucester is and what it's about, the amount of people that I sensed had a bit of a chip on their shoulder about Cheltenham. Oh, well, all the money goes to Cheltenham. If you want to have a night out, you've got to go to Cheltenham. All the restaurants are in Cheltenham. The best cinemas in Cheltenham. All these things. I heard it time and time and time again. I don't hear that anymore. And I think that is a testimony to the work that's been done by the councils, by, obviously it can't be political, but by all the officers of those that are interested in Gloucester's future. So from a small business point of view, I think it's a great city to be at. A lot of small businesses that will be created at this period. We have to remember that. We're getting inquiries at the FSB from new starters, people who are starting businesses. My colleague Russell, who's sitting behind me, he actually is across the border in Stroud. He runs an office business park. He's had inquiries only this week. He's full. He could fill it with more. So there is something happening. That's not saying it isn't incredibly tough out there for businesses, but it's not all doom and gloom. And I do think the city's got a great future.
Well, thank you very much for that, Sam. And I think that feeling of increased confidence is one that we've heard reflected both by Owen during a difficult time for retail and hospitality, and also by Esther as a major investor whose plans could easily have been rocked by what's been going on, but is absolutely committed to this. So I think the combination of that confidence in business, the commitment of government and local government, which is reflected in what Stacey was saying about the joined-up nature of the health sector's commitment to growth, more employees. There are huge numbers of jobs available in the NHS and the care sector at the moment, should be quite encouraging. On that note, I'm going to bring in Jeanette from FlexiCare. Jeanette, just to say a word or two perhaps about how you see the care sector and the opportunities there, both with your business but in the county more widely.
Well, thank you, Richard. Well, FlexiCare is 23 years old and we have 180 people working, fantastic people who battle their way through the pandemic. They're absolutely fantastic. Of those 23 years in business, 10 years of them have been in research since university 10 years ago, looking at ways we can engineer the care sector into a different way of working. And we're on the cusp of a really exciting development now in integrated care, with working with the care labs and the future of care. Have you heard of that one? Future?
Not myself, no.
No. Future Care Capital is the care labs. The principle is, you've got to have a good imagination for this, is that we're going to capitalise on all the goodwill that was shown during the pandemic. So we experienced massive levels of goodwill at our company. But if you could duplicate that all the way around the country in the form of a care lab, so here's the imagination, you have to have everybody working together collaboratively, primary care networks, doctors, nurses, volunteers, and just do something completely different. And we're on the cusp. I've got a Zoom conference on the 18th of September to sort of put the sort of foundations down. And I've been doing some voluntary work for the Leaders' Council of Great Britain in trying to help shape the health and social care sector for the future. But I'm very old now. I'm determined to see this through. So we've got huge opportunities for growth in Gloucestershire, and we're I think we've got about 20 people today, Richard. I'd like to have come away with 30 people today, a kickstart person, and then build, because we're going to be the foundation, hopefully, of the care labs. Yeah, thank you. Thank you.
Well, that's very encouraging. Another example of innovation coming from Gloucester. And I'm turning now, Polly, towards you, because several years ago, another of the cliches said about Gloucester was that we had a University of Gloucestershire that wasn't really in Gloucester. We had a little campus, but nobody knew much about what went on there. Today, it's a completely different situation. You've got a range of new courses there, a huge transformation physically of the impact of the university, whether it's on the sports side, on the creative arts side, or on the new amazing business course that you've got, and the Growth Hub. Will you tell us a little bit, Polly, about the Growth Hub and the changing role of the University of Gloucestershire in Gloucester?
Thanks, Richard. Hopefully you can hear me. So yes, we're very fortunate in our Oxtalls campus that in 2018 we had our marvellous new business school built, and we all moved in there, and that for the first time brought together our Growth Hub, which we'd had since 2014 on Oxtalls campus, together with the academic side of what we do in our business school academics. So we're the first university in the country to have a Growth Hub that deals with, I think it's up to 6,000 businesses now, actually embedded in our business school. So we won a Times Higher Education Award for our business engagement strategy and the way that our students have access to all of those 6,000 businesses, and we can facilitate all sorts of opportunities and experiential opportunities for those students while they're doing their programmes, and we hope to grow that and reinforce that. We're part way through that journey, and we hope to see lots of improvements. The Oxtalls campus, as you say, has grown. We now have, where the Growth Hub used to be, we now have a Health Hub, which points to a lot of the growth that we've had, and redevelopments and beautiful clinical facilities that we've got on Oxtalls campus. So we're very lucky. It's very exciting. There's lots of new developments going.
And of course, the impact of having much more activity at Oxtalls campus, more courses, is that we have more people residentially living in the city, spending in the city, and contributing to the growth, which in turn helps retailers and so on. So this is all about increased pride in the city, which I think we can all agree has been on the rise for the last 10 years. At the heart of pride in the city, of course, is the place where we're holding today's lift-off, here in Kingsholm, the headquarters of Gloucester Rugby. Gloucester Rugby has also had its training academy down the road at Hartbury University, but that is coming to an end, and although we can't possibly ask Lance Bradley today where the new training academy is going to be, we might ask him whether it's going to be in Gloucester, and how important is Gloucester to this great club.
Nothing like a leading question. Thank you for that, Richard. Yeah, well, no, I'm delighted to say we've got a new training ground being set up in the middle of Cheltenham. It's going to be state of the art. No, we've had a huge amount of support locally where we've been looking for sites for the new training ground. We want to have a world-class facility. That's obviously slightly difficult when we're going through the kind of financial setback that we are. But the support that we've had from yourself and from the local council, from a lot of local people, has been instrumental, and we're close to being able to announce where the new training ground is going to be, and of course it is in Gloucester. Where else could it be? So we're very excited about that. It's also, I have to say, this has been a great day for us because we feel very confident about the future of Gloucester. I'm not from Gloucester, not yet. But I've been here for a year. One of the things that surprised me when I came here is how, to some extent, lacking in confidence people from Gloucester who work here at Gloucester are. And one of the things I've tried to do over the last 12 months is to say, why would you not be confident? This is as good a place as any and better than most. Not just the rugby club, but the city as well. The view of Gloucester as a city from where I've come from outside of the city, I think is much higher than some of the people here have. So I think it's quite a big thing to try to turn around that kind of pride. And we're doing it here. When I came here, we talked about, why don't we have this level of hospitality? Oh, nobody in Gloucester's going to want that kind of hospitality. They only ever want a pie and a pine. Well, do you know what? They don't. They do want the fine things, and they do want to see, the best that there is, and we can provide that. And, it all goes towards increasing the confidence, and, we're pleased to be playing a small part of that.
Thanks, Lance. Well, it is very interesting. This question about quality and what Gloucester requires, what people expect when they come here and live here and so on. It is all about having a bit of self-confidence. And no one better, in a sense, to comment on that, if he puts away his iPhone for a brief moment, would be the former editor of The Citizen, Ian Mean, who's seen Gloucester in harder times. He's seen it change over the last decade. Ian, how confident are you that we're going to rise through the challenges that the whole country's got at the moment, but actually this special city is going to be able to thrive in the ways that we've just heard from a few people in different sectors? Ian Mean.
Very confident. I'm confident because I came here to edit The Citizen 18 years ago. I remember when you became MP, I said I'll give you 5 out of 10. I think that's a bit more now, but it's all about the people, actually. Gloucester people. I worked on newspapers, editing newspapers all over the country. This is the best place for people, and it's synonymous with rugby. Rugby is at its heart. And I remember as Vice Chairman of the Urban Regeneration Company, we looked at what Gloucester stood for, and we chose 2 things. One was the heritage, the cathedral, the other was rugby. I said to most people that rugby was more important. And then we went on a journey with the Keys, and I have to say, I'm not being paid by Peel, but Peel have been huge benefactors to this city. They really have. Without Peel, without the help of the council and their support, and the county council, the docks would never have happened. And of course the RDA. If the RDA hadn't existed, we wouldn't have had the sort of money. But coming back to your question, I think that we're on the precipice now. I've said for a long time, the city centre has to come to life. I believe sincerely we need people living back in that centre. Empty retail has got to be made into homes. If you go to places like Brighton, look above the shops and look above the shops in the gate streets. They're just amazing. And we need to bring people back there. But I think it has turned first circle. When I came here, Gloucester developers wouldn't touch, and this is not my quote, wouldn't touch Gloucester with a barge pole. Why? Because of things that have gone on in the past. And luckily we now have developers like Peel, like Reef, who have sort of grasped the baton here. But change isn't easy, It's a bit like building a car. They say it takes 8 to 9 years to actually build a car. And I know Urban Regeneration Company, we lasted for 8 years. But it's only now, I think, we're seeing some of those things coming forward. I'd like to see the hospital become a university trust in terms of its research. And I know that's something that they're doing. I think the NHS here have done a marvellous job, the care sector particularly. And I don't think people realise how many people work in that sector, as you've said. Amazing numbers of people. We have incredible schools, absolutely incredible schools, some of the best schools in the country here. So I look upon, I'm still here, I'm still supporting Gloucester. I'm on the board of the LEP here, and I try very hard to talk up Gloucester. Some people don't like that, tough. So, you know, what I think, Richard, here today you've done is bring together quite a lot of people. Some of them support you politically, some of them don't, but the main point is that they support Gloucester. And that's the key thing here. And well done for today.
Well, thanks, Ian. The key thing is the support of Gloucester and self-confidence and so on. Ian mentioned the high-quality schools that we got here, which are also important to developers. They want to see that people want to come and live in Gloucester because they can get great education for their children. So I'm coming towards the representative and I think the careers advisor at one of our best schools, the Denmark Road High School. Denmark Road has been changing over years. You've now got boys as well as girls. You've got lots of bright people getting great qualifications. How do you see the opportunities for them in Gloucester after they've left you?
Thank you. So it's really been very interesting to hear that it's more of a strategic view of what's happening in the future. Some of the issues I'm dealing with going back into school is actually about exposure to work placements at the moment. So the NHS is here. That's one of the great places that you've got a programme of exposure and work days, but they're all on hold, unfortunately, at the moment. So I'm sorry if I'm going on, but I know it's a strategic talk, but I'm wondering what can help the young school leaders as they go through their journey of being exposed to different workplaces so they're ready to make informed decisions about their next steps. It's just at the moment, I'm looking at virtual experiences for them, and I'm just thinking, how do they prepare and make their own decisions about the way forward, knowing what the opportunities will be on the horizon right now, with the difficulties. Anyone got any ideas?
Okay. Well, thanks for that. We could have some individual conversations about work placements and so on. But I think what's encouraging, and I think what has changed over the last decade, is the way in which young women are now taking their place at the forefront of so many different industries. I've been visiting some of the aerospace, the world's leading aerospace companies here in Gloucestershire over the last decade, and the percentage of young women thriving and actually moving into leadership positions in some of those companies has changed. There's still a long way to go in some places. I'm sure Julie would say the same thing at Glasgow. The percentage of female apprentices on the electrical engineering courses and so on is still pretty low, but it is changing, and that's very important. The nuclear headquarters of EDF Energy here in Barnwood, they have 8 people on their management committee, and half of them came through an apprenticeship line, half of them through a degree, and there were at least 2 out of the 8 are female. That would not have been the way in nuclear power some time ago. So this is perhaps a good moment as we draw towards the end of this session to come to a young person in the audience to tell us a bit about yourself, what you've heard today, and whether you've got confidence in our city's future.
Hi, I'm Jessica Faulkner. I'm an engineering apprentice. Also do a degree with that as part of Glasgow and University of the West of England. I'm obviously really interested in engineering from a young age, and it was kind of natural to progress into an apprenticeship. I know everyone always talks about finishing school and going into a university degree, but after a lot of research I found that actually the experience that you get with a degree is much more with an apprenticeship is much more valuable than, you know, just steering straight through a degree. And I think everything that's been mentioned today is really promising, and as you said, we need to increase the amount of girls that are coming through apprenticeships, but also come through engineering apprenticeships. And I think that's something that I'd also like to kind of try and help with as I go through my career. But yeah, it looks so promising, and you know, I can't wait to see how Gloucester progresses.
Thank you, Jess, so much. That I think is, in a way, the best endorsement of what everyone in this room is trying to achieve, which is to make this city a better, more exciting, more dynamic place for people to grow up and then work in and later on retire in with great health care to help them at that stage. And I think that as we bring this session to an end, what I hope is that the message that will go out there is that we've got people, whether in the public or the private sector, whether working in journalism or retail, in sport and in development, who have great confidence in the future of this city. Interestingly, only 3 years ago, Gloucester had the highest employment rate, the 4th highest employment rate of any city in the country. And we're not far off that position now. So when you look at the claimant rates, the claimant rate is the percentage of people who are on universal credit. Don't be misled, because those figures often conceal the fact that very many people who are on universal credit are actually working. They're just getting what in the olden days would have been called a bit of housing benefit or a bit of tax credit. Those benefits are all wrapped up into one thing, universal credit. And the vast majority of people who are getting UC, like my caseworker, are actually working and often in responsible positions. So our opportunity is to maintain that high employment rate, raise the quality of the jobs and the skills required to win them. And we're going to see that at Unilever, at Walls Ice Cream, which is their factory for the whole country here in the UK. We will see them gradually bringing in robots and other things, which will reduce the number of people on the assembly lines, but increase the number of higher skilled jobs. The same is going to be true of Permali, who manufacture for the MOD and for the Department of Health. Gradually, that upskilling process, the way in which the college and the university can help people in Gloucester make sure that we win those higher paid jobs, is going to happen. So today, I hope we can leave you all, I hope all the panel are comfortable with leaving all our viewers with the thought that we're going to face problems. We're going to have employment challenges, but we're also going to rise to them, and there are people out there who are going to have very exciting opportunities for you. So ladies and gentlemen, will you join me in thanking our panel, Owen from Gloucester Quays, Stacey from the NHS, Ian from the City Council, and Esther from Reef for joining us for this session.
People who just want to do that route. It's not without its politics and local difficulties, frankly, but I think notwithstanding that that might be the perfect solution, certainly as far as I'm concerned sitting in Cheltenham, we have to recognise that we're in a much better place than we were, namely that we have regular sub-2-hour trains. And the final point I'd make is that, yes, we will get past COVID, but a lot of things will continue to be viewed in light of COVID. And I think you'll find increasingly that people may say, Joe, I need to go to London, but I don't need to go every day, and I might just go 2 days. And in fact, in those circumstances, they may take the view, if occasionally I have to get the train, get my car, drive down to Swindon and jump on, or if I have to get on at Cheltenham, it takes 2 hours, that's not such a big problem. And increasingly, we'll be able to say to those folks living in London, yeah, you're in quite a sort of tiny little flat there, you know, maybe you want to come to Cheltenham. And we've got great schools, we've got the Cotswolds, we've got GCHQ. I think Cheltenham and Gloucester will become far more attractive places post-COVID than perhaps even they were before. So those are just some initial remarks. Right, who wants another question for our esteemed panel? No? You're all ready to go? You've all got your job applications in? That's all sorted. Now, are we going to hear from maybe a cyber apprentice? Are you going to come and tell us how it is?
Sure.
Can you? Come and take over. You can take over from me and tell us about your experience. Why don't you sit here and I'll come and watch in the audience.
Okay. Well,
will you introduce yourself?
Yes, so first off, I'm...
Take your mask off.
Yeah, sorry. I am Taylor Watson. I currently study a level 6 integrated cybersecurity degree apprenticeship with Glasgow. Correct me if I'm wrong, is that the correct title? There we go. So I'm currently employed at a company called Cybersecurity Associates, who sponsored me through also my level 3, because I did before this a level 3 qualification apprenticeship in IT infrastructure. that's me, really.
No, well, good. So why do you think that taking this route is going to make you oven ready for the jobs market?
Because I won't, from how I see it, if I was to go to a university, what their syllabus and what they teach is this is from what I've got from my friends who are in university, is quite substantially different to what you would do on the job. Whereas if you were to get all of your knowledge you need in-house from a business perspective, you wouldn't have to. I think you're more so robbing yourself if in this time and age that you don't go and do it. Because beforehand, when apprenticeships weren't as big and accepted, it would have made more sense to go to a university.
So let me ask two questions very quickly. So you will end up with a degree from UE at the end of it, notwithstanding you've gone via this route. Do you feel that your apprentice route degree has got the same currency as a university route degree?
No, because I think it'd be worth more.
Right, that's exactly what I'm hearing as well. Yeah. And compared to somebody who's gone just down the university route, how will your finances look at the end of it?
Oh, amazing. Perfect.
So when you see your university friends and you meet them in the pub, if we're still allowed to do that, the drinks are on you, are they? Is that
well, not at the minute because I'm 17.
Oh, right.
To be fair, drinks can be on me, but as long as I don't buy them.
That's great. And obviously, for young people, it is it's a nerve-wracking time. Frankly, it's a nerve-wracking time for people who aren't so young as well. You're immersed in this sector. Do you sit there and think, actually, do you know what? It's going to be okay. There is going to be this pipeline of jobs and opportunities. How are you feeling? How do you feel about that?
I definitely feel like that, and I'm not really worried at all because working from home now is something which is so available and now recognised as quite easy to do for both a employee and a business side. Correct me if I'm wrong. I think it will definitely open up the job market because one of the limitations before seems to be office space. If your home is your office, that issue's gone, especially for companies that got to pay for the office space. You're doing it at home, meaning that they can, from the money which they take from the budget and that bit, that can be put towards better facilities, employing new people, or increasing training for employees, where I think you have to look at the silver lining because, don't get me wrong, the times have been horrible to say the least, but if you don't look at the silver linings, then you're robbing yourself of both potential and happiness.
Well, that's a philosophical note. I wish I could have spoken like you at 17. All right, listen, I'm going to take this opportunity to thank everyone on the panel. So those of you in the room, those of you watching, thank you all very much for attending. Thank you.
There isn't a difference anymore in where apprenticeships can take people, and that it's just as valid an opportunity for their bright kids and their high achievers as anything else, really.
Now, you've had big success, haven't you, in the nursing field?
Yes.
COVID has put the NHS slap bang in front of us, and probably a lot of people don't realise it's the biggest employer in this county, in the country, fifth in the world, I think.
Yes,
you've had a lot of success there, haven't you?
Yes, we have. We've done really well. We've got nursing associates, which is sort of level 5 nursing. We do nursing degree apprenticeships as well. The nursing, the health and social care option at Gloucester in our Oxford campus has grown like you wouldn't believe, and a lot of that is due to added demand from within the health service. So we've had a great deal of success with that. I think that's in part driven because we work very closely with our NHS locally, and we're very in tune with what they want and need, and also the professional bodies, Health Education England and so on. We work very closely with them at the sort of senior level.
Yeah. So what's the message to people looking into this if they're students, and they're not perhaps quite sure what they're going to do. They live in Gloucestershire. What can you offer them?
So if you, sorry to direct people to the website, but if you look on our website, it's got information about all the programmes that we do. It explains a bit more about what degree apprenticeships and other higher apprenticeships are and the process through them. And if you want to leave your details with us, and if we've got opportunities there, we can pass those on to the employers that we work with. So there's a lot of information there. There's a lot of information on the Institute for Apprenticeships website, and also from our colleagues here. If you look, there are a lot of apprenticeships still available to people that want to take them up.
That's brilliant. Next, I'd like to ask Pat McLeod to talk to us. Pat is one of the best people I know in terms of the nuts and bolts of apprenticeships. It's not easy, to take on an apprentice, is it? You can't just ring someone up. It doesn't quite work like that. I've been involved in this for some years, and it's complicated, to say the least. And Pat's one of those people who I remember some time ago saying to him, why don't you write a sort of A to Z on how to take on an apprentice? But, he's in charge of that for SGS, who are, of course, South Gloucestershire and Stroud College in Stroud and campuses in Bristol. So, Pat, apprentices, from your point of view, a bit like Andy, quite a bit down because companies just cannot afford to take them on.
That's the position we're in, Ian. Yeah, we're similar to Andy. We're about 60% of normal volumes. So as we go into this academic year, I'm anticipating that we'll start somewhere between 450 apprentices through the year, compared to 650 in a typical year. And I think, to me, the theme that we've revisited time and again today, and the most urgent issue on apprenticeships for me, is keeping that pipeline flowing to create opportunities for school leavers and college leavers who aspire to be on apprenticeships, and to make sure that we've got the talent pool from employers. As Gillian herself said, we are going to come out of this. There is going to be an upturn. Employers will be recruiting again. We just haven't got the clarity of when that might be, and it'll be different for different sectors. And one very pragmatic thing that the Minister could possibly do is look at programme-led apprenticeships with a relaxation on the employability requirement. Now, what that would mean is school leavers who've got the attributes and the ability to be on apprenticeship, but through no fault of their own, they cannot find a suitable vacancy. We could start them on the apprenticeship training, developing the skills and the knowledge, and as and when that person is ready and the vacancy comes up with the employer, we can seamlessly move them into the employment, and they can continue with the apprenticeship. And it could also, at the other end of the programme, be a safety net for those apprentices who are getting towards completion and are let go by employers, but we can complete their programme in the college. Now, there's been some relaxation towards this. They've said if you're 75% through, there's legislation going through at the moment to say we can pick those up. But there's a trap for the third years, just going into the third year of a 4-year apprenticeship, and they actually fall through a gap there. So there's a little bit of work there to be done. But the other thing that the programme-led apprenticeship would do, of course, is, again, as Gillian mentioned, all the issues that the 3 million apprenticeships were the solution to, the skills gap, the UK productivity, they're going to still be there as we come out of COVID. And if we can keep the apprenticeship pipeline flowing, 2, 3, 4 years' time, as these apprentices graduate, we're feeding that skills demand in the country.
Yeah. So you agree with the idea of Kickstart being developed into a proper apprenticeship?
Yeah, I mean, the steps the Chancellor has taken with Kickstart, with the traineeships investment, with the apprenticeship incentives, I don't think he could have done more. I think absolutely fantastic initiatives. We now just need a bit more clarity on how those schemes are meant to be connected, and how the learner is meant to flow and progress through the traineeship, the Kickstart, and onto the apprenticeships. Yeah. Okay, so what I would say is, whilst we would love the Minister to have that relaxation and allow programme-led apprentices, in the meantime, we're doing what we can to create our own version. So speak to the colleges. We will find a slot for you. We're all running late information and guidance sessions, and we can probably find somewhere, be it on a full-time programme, from which you could transition to an apprenticeship when it becomes available.
For young people looking into this, what's your message to them?
My message, same as Polly, same as Andy, get in touch with the college. There'll be a phone number, there'll be a website with an info email address. We've all got information and guidance teams in place picking up inquiries every day.
Great, thanks. Kevin Harris. Kevin, I've known for quite a lot of years. Kevin is MD of Bamboo, big technology company. He's also head of Constructing Excellence, and you know, he's an engineer by profession, so came up through the apprenticeship ranks. Kevin, what's your view of the apprentice opportunities today?
Well, it's interesting. I was talking to Andy actually just before we came onto the panel, and I'm a lot older than a lot of people in the room for sure. And back in the mid-70s, late 70s, when I did my apprenticeship, I think it was a 5-year apprenticeship, and I got offered 6 apprenticeships, and I was able to choose which one I went for. And I had my mind set on one, and I remember ringing them up and saying, look, I'd like to come and be with you, and then let all the other ones down. How the world has changed, eh? You know, apprenticeships for me, in particular, well, one, you don't roll up the debt like you do when you go to university, so I think that's great. But actually, we've got people, and one of them's in the audience today, Ben, who's just started on a cyber degree at the college. And for me, watching people grow and bring back what they learn at university or at college and watch it happen in front of you is so really rewarding for me as MD to watch them. And we've got 4 going through our business at the moment. And in fact, we've just moved into the college building in Princess Elizabeth Way in Cheltenham. We've taken over the top floor there. It's great to be around, and that vibrancy of youth is good. Yeah. But we shouldn't also forget that not everyone's a youngster. So, and I think just being mindful that actually apprentices for older people could exist as well, I think would be a really nice thing to have.
You mentioned Ben. Ben, would you come forward and could you tell us a little bit about your journey with Bamboo so far?
Yeah, so I joined Bamboo
Tell for everyone who doesn't know, what do Bamboo do?
So they're a telecommunications and sort of network supplier, and also IT. Have an IT company where we look after IT systems and phone systems, install them, repair them, provision fixed lines, look after mobiles. There's a lot that Bamboo does. They're very much fingers in many pies within the telecommunications and also the IT infrastructure of Gloucestershire.
So how did you start?
So I started as customer service in 2015, back when it was called Total, very briefly. And then we big rebrand to Bamboo, and I was customer service for a couple of years, and then I got the opportunity to go into IT, and I took that, and I've only really been in that for a year, and then I got this opportunity that Kevin and Lauren at Bamboo offered me and told me to look into it, and I said yes, definitely want to look into the cybersecurity apprenticeship, and haven't looked back really. It's been the best. It's been a very challenging week.
When you left school, what happened?
So I'm 30 years old, so I left school about 15 years ago, and I went to college and ended up doing a course to get out to university, and I studied English for about a year. Didn't catch on with it, and it's obviously I was going to become a primary school teacher, so it's very different to where I am now as to where I started. I've just sort of naturally progressed towards cybersecurity really, and the whole IT industry.
And you're saying that you're an quote older unquote apprentice.
Correct. Yes.
But I guess there are many people of your age and on that who've been on that career path.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I've changed my job role 4 times in the last 5 years within one company, and since my professional working career, I've worked in restaurants, I've worked in language schools, I've worked in doing many things, and people at my age sometimes change their career 3, 4, 5 times. So people should never be afraid of changing their career regardless of how old they are, because of the apprenticeship scheme is so perfect for that. It's because it gives you that opportunity. And it's
What do your friends think about what you're doing?
Yeah, they're proud, I guess, in a way. Surprised that I'm changing things slightly at the age of 30, although it's not old at all, of course it's not, but yeah, some of them wouldn't do it themselves because they're happy in their own environments, but I think it's good to challenge one. And so yeah.
And what's the message for young people? A lot of young people watching this, probably still at school, probably just left, thinking what to do. Put yourself in their position. What would you do if you were back there then?
So if I was to redo it, if I was 15, 16 coming out, I would take every opportunity with both hands and really, I didn't make as much of the opportunities I had when I was 16, 17, but I definitely would do that now. I would say there was a lot more opportunities now. I didn't know anything about apprenticeships or anything like that. I did the degree, went to Southampton University. It was completely different. And that was because I was told to do that, because that was the environment it was 15 years ago. And I'm sure there was opportunities, but we didn't know. So now there is more opportunities, and it really do make the most of it, because you won't regret it. It's fantastic, really. And just put everything you can into it, and then you'll reap the rewards.
That's brilliant. That's great. Great example. Before I just get a last message from you, any other sort of thoughts? Our friend at the back was you were brilliant earlier. Absolutely brilliant. Do you want to say anything just generally as a last message of today on apprentices?
Well, I would say.
Can you just come forward and...
Is there anything specific you want me to say?
No, I don't. I want you to say...
Final words of wisdom? Okay.
Yeah.
So
you're the star of today.
So for anyone younger watching this, I would definitely say take the leap, because that's what I did. Because I had the choice: do I go do A-levels? Do I go to college? And the only reason, so I've spoke to my friends about why they didn't do apprenticeships. The reason why they didn't do it wasn't because they didn't want to do it. It was because they were scared. And no matter how scared you are, if I hadn't taken the leap and just gone for it, then I wouldn't be the person I am today, and I wouldn't have gotten as far as I've got. So the one thing I say to cap this off is, if you are young, take the leap. That's it.
Yeah. Why were they scared?
Because just a lot of commitment, really. Because also going from a school environment where you're in a way kind of guided through it into full-time employment, is going from that is, dare I say, baptism by fire, because you're going from a 6-hour-a-day to a full-time job where it's not like if you misbehave, you'll just get a detention or a verbal warning, you're gone, because it's employment, it's the real world, which is, it's a very scary thing, but if you just believe in yourself and if you just do what you're told, and also know that you can make mistakes, because you're an apprentice, you're there to learn. And the sooner you learn that, the sooner you'll be able to strive and go further.
Brilliant. And what's your ambition now?
So my ambition, my plan, per se, is to do this degree apprenticeship, because I'm on the same course as Ben, stay in the field, probably jump around job roles for about 4 or 5 years, and try to start my own recruitment agency, which focuses on providing knowledge and skills to people to people who are older, and to people from lower socioeconomical, and to people who are from ethnic, racial backgrounds.
Fantastic idea. Absolutely brilliant. Last message from you, Andy.
Yeah, I think just echoing, what Patrick and Polly were saying is that, yeah, we will get through this. COVID, we will get through this, but at the moment it's quite tough out there for young people because there aren't the job opportunities. So it's a message to employers, really. It's take a chance on some young people, because you get young people like Taylor here, and they bring a lot to your organisation. So yeah.
Holly.
same sort of message. I would just add that I've got 2 people in my team who are in their 40s and 50s who are doing an apprenticeship, so there are opportunities for all ages. It's very different now, and I think we are all hoping that we come out of this quite quickly. So what we really don't want is that people are taking decisions, whether that's young people or employers, that actually have repercussions way beyond any sort of dip that we have because of COVID. We want to come out really strong with all the skills and knowledge that we need.
I'm going to pick up on the point that was made about the step from school or college into work. And believe me, it's a huge transition and we don't estimate it. And we know the work that we need to do to support that step. It might surprise you that a lot of the SME employers who haven't employed school leavers before, they've got a little bit of trepidation as well as they go into this process. And I'd say invariably they are astounded at the calibre of the young person that we can put in front of them. And they're even more astounded that they see the rate of development and how those people progress. And that's why apprenticeships run at something like 90% retention. You cannot buy a recruitment service that will give you that retention.
Yeah. Kevin?
Well, for me, I think, just listening to Taylor there about his transition, and if I think about the apprentices we've got in our business, actually, I think they probably come to us and ask if they can do an apprenticeship, if I'm truthful. I don't think we've gone to them. So if you're in a business at the moment and you fancy doing something different, you can change your career within the same business. That's fine to do that. I think go and ask your employer, can I do an apprenticeship, and push them. And actually we've just got someone who's done that recently, and we've just signed her up for an apprenticeship because she came to us. For me, it shows that they want to do something different. But for me, that's really, really important. Really important.
Great. Thanks very much. Great panel. Taylor, Ben, actually brilliant examples of what we're talking about, isn't it? Yes. Thank you.
Absolutely.
At the heart of what so much is being done in Gloucestershire is really acting as mainframe contractors or subcontractors for the production of Airbus aircraft. And I've always been interested when trying to help sell Airbus products, mostly in the Far East, by the statistic that over a third of the value of any Airbus is made in the UK. That is, so long as it's got a Rolls-Royce engine. The figure's slightly different with a different engine. But that figure is huge, and I think it's fair to say that the collection of mainframe contractors and subcontractors in Gloucestershire does make a significant contribution to Airbus. And of course you also employ quite a lot of people from the county at your plant and your offices in Bristol. So ladies and gentlemen, let's start with an overview of the current situation, which is a very difficult one at the moment, but hopefully with a much brighter future. Let's have that overview, please, from Catherine Bennett at Airbus. Catherine, welcome.
Thank you very much, Richard, and I'm very sorry not to be able to be with you in person because I've never been to the Kingsholm Stadium, so I must come another time, and congratulations for putting on this event, and I hear it's been a great day. As you said, Gloucestershire, very important for Airbus. I know Filton is not quite in Gloucestershire, but we do procure from over 16 suppliers in Gloucestershire. And we have nearly 200 employees who live in Gloucestershire, so may that continue and may that continue to grow. So, and now just a little personal tribute, not to embarrass you too much, Richard, but I want to say on behalf of Airbus and UK Aerospace, thank you for all you've done when you travel to the Far East, fighting our corner, and truly has appreciated, turned into deals for us. So very real, and thank you for that, Richard. So just, I've got a few minutes. Richard just wanted me to touch on the industry as we see it. And of course, I know there's other panellists today, some of whom I know very well, who will also wish to comment. But of course, COVID-19 has been one of the gravest things that's ever hit our industry. Our CEO, Guillaume Fauré, talks about that a lot. 40% of our commercial aircraft business was affected. Domestic flights have dropped by 70%. I mean, who would ever have expected that? And of course, you don't need me to say, and I promise Richard I won't have a dig, but the quarantine issue is hugely affecting aviation, and let's hope that the health restores and that we can get people flying again. So my little comments today is good and bad news. So that's maybe some of the bad news. In response to the situation facing the aviation industry, Airbus and our supply chain have had to make some changes. We've sadly announced a reduction by 40% of our production, and that has also led, sadly, to a reduction in employee numbers across the world, and the UK has had to pay its share of that. We estimate that aviation will return to normal within maybe 3 years on what we call the short-haul airline sector, which is what I call the EasyJet size aircraft, but maybe worst case 5 years for it to return to normal. And just to say, as some of you may have seen in the news, of course, our factories have had to be ready for working in the COVID environment. Luckily, aircraft wings are quite large, so the manufacture of them can be done at quite a distance. Of course, our satellite's the same. And, I want to pay a huge tribute to our employees and our union representatives and our supply chain who've worked very hard to get that working again. Also, some of you may be aware, and I know some Gloucestershire companies were involved in this, the amazing story of the ventilator challenge. It's a shame that we had to do this, but a number of high-tech engineering companies came together and produced ventilators for the NHS. Quite an astonishing story. I know Renishaw's, I know GKN, and a number of my colleagues in Airbus and other colleagues from Rolls-Royce were very involved in this, and we produced thousands of ventilators in super quick time. And I have to say, if you spoke to some of our employees who were building wings, they would never have thought they'd be making ventilators. So that was one thing that worked well in terms of how engineers love to come together and provide solutions quickly. So if I just move quickly onto the good news, because I know we're wanting to talk today about the future and opportunities for young people. Aerospace and defence and the space industry, we're a very long-term industry, so we have great opportunities. So the aircraft wings and satellites that are being built and designed down the road from you in Gloucestershire, they are going to be in service. Those aircraft are going to be in service for maybe 30, maybe 40 years. So it's absolutely an industry to get into. High-tech innovation is absolutely the name of the game, and the government recently produced an innovation roadmap to look into how we get our science base going and make sure that we're top of the world there. And that's really important for aerospace, and I'm sure we'll hear more about that from the other panellists, but we're very keen to see not only aerospace companies, but also the government investing in research and technology. And I know Richard has supported us on that. So we're hoping for some good news from the government's comprehensive spending review towards the end of the year. The other thing I would say to young people thinking about a career in aerospace and defence, digital data skills, absolutely the name of the game. So if you're good at that, if you're good at design, you're the kind of people that we want. It's definitely the future. So some amazing stories about the use of AI technology on wing design and servicing of our aircraft. We still have a shortage of engineers. We still have a shortage of pilots, although there have been some sad stories about pilots being laid off. But seriously, the whole industry as a whole, we need more engineering capabilities. Our supply chain, very important, and we're hoping that government will support the industry on a big campaign we've been running in terms of getting some long-term financing. So in terms of Airbus and our employees, we have a graduate training scheme, we have an apprentice scheme. We have had 30 new apprentices starting in Filton just this month. So often our apprentices is a wonderful story. You don't get university debt, you get paid to do your studies and you end up with a degree. So definitely worth thinking about as a career. Sadly, we're not recruiting at the moment, but please direct people to our website. Keep an eye on that when we will be recruiting again. I know myself and other senior management in Airbus are really committed to ensuring that we take on more apprentices, more graduates, and we're always on the hunt for new talent. And talking about new talent, we're really keen to be part, of course, of the sustainable aviation future. The Prime Minister made a big speech in Dudley in June about many things, but he actually talked about the desire to see the UK very involved in something called the Jet Zero Challenge, which is an transatlantic aircraft that he wants to see designed and built in the UK. Another one of his moonshot projects. And isn't it important, all of us, that we in the southwest of England, that you in Gloucestershire can all be part of that future? Thank you, Richard.
Catherine, thank you very much. I hope that some of those thoughts that you were expressing there will give young people listening a real sense of the commitment to the aerospace and space industries. And very encouraging that you've taken on new apprenticeships even fairly recently during the pandemic. Can I just ask a little bit about the last project you mentioned, because we haven't got, I'm afraid, Rolls-Royce with us here today. But I think for many people in the aviation and aerospace sectors, the difficulty of trying to make sure that we do meet environmental goals while still being able to fly all over the world has been a sort of major philosophical challenge for the industries and really the country as a whole. So how realistic is it, do you think, to imagine that the pandemic may have accelerated work being done on trying to produce zero carbon jet travel?
I'm not sure we can say necessarily the pandemic has accelerated it, because I think possibly other colleagues in the room from aerospace would agree that we'd already been doing, a super amount of work on that. But yes, maybe it's focused people's minds in a different way, Richard. You're right to say, the climate emergency is not going away. With the UK chairing COP26 next year, we in the UK sector want to play our part in that. And the only way to do it is to work with people, as you said, like Rolls-Royce, but also, very importantly, the fuel companies. So we're part of an organisation called Sustainable Aviation, and they're doing, again, another big bid for some sustainable aviation fuel solutions. I mean, it's different with smaller aircraft, such as the ones that potentially fly down the road from you at the airport. The smaller aircraft, maybe they can be run on alternative fuels, but a large civil airliner, pretty difficult, and obviously safety is paramount. So we just got to work together, and I often say it's our wing designers down the road in Filton who spend their lifetime designing more fuel-efficient wings to help more fuel-efficient aircraft. We've all got to be part of that future.
You alluded to the work done at Staverton Airport with Electrolyte and Rolls-Royce working in a partnership there. You're absolutely right, of course, these are tiny aircraft. And the concept of being able to fly on an aircraft which is run by electricity is interesting, but I'm guessing not going to be a part of Airbus's future at the moment. What more do you think the engine manufacturers can do to make their engines just much more efficient and ideally to explore looking at other sources of fuel?
Well, some of you may have seen some of the designs that have been talked about over the last few years. And, we don't see Rolls-Royce as part of the problem. They're absolutely alongside us as a partner. And some of the new designs that you may have seen are around the idea of a blended wing, which is that the engine actually would be part of the wing. But, we can only move as fast as our nearest partner. So it's important that we all try and work together. And there's some projects. The government recently announced a project as part of the virtual Farnborough Air Show called Fly Zero, which is working with the Aerospace Technology Institute. And that's a good example, Richard, of how we're bringing together academics, Rolls-Royce, sustainable fuel companies, and OEMs such as Airbus to try our best to work on that. But it's going to be a long time coming, but we're happy to look at sort of blended fuel options, maybe use of hydrogen and fuel cells, of course. So lots of opportunities for companies who want to invest in that part of the business.
Thank you. And on the innovation roadmap, I think that everybody in the room and yourself and others who are digitally tuning in, I think will be encouraged to hear that my last conversation with the Chancellor a couple of days ago in terms of the innovation roadmap and future government investment in the technology research, I do sense that the government is more interested in that sort of approach rather than, say, the business of propping up jobs in sectors which are really unlikely to be there in the long term. I do think that his and our focus is going to be on the longer term, and it has to be about innovation and quality. That's where the UK still has a leading edge. Catherine, I'm going to invite the panel here now to come forward and join me. I'm guessing at this stage that you will probably want to escape to other pressing matters. And if that is the case, I just want to thank you very much on behalf of all of us for joining us today and giving us the Airbus overview.
No problem. Thank you, Richard, and best wishes for the rest of the day.
Thank you very much. Right, so that's a thank you to Catherine Bennett of Airbus. Panel, would you like to come and join me up at the front for this discussion? We'll then be facing the camera in the room. Well, I think, Henry, you're certainly with us. Sean, you're certainly with us. I think we're okay. I think that's the panel. So, I'm joined here on this panel, which is a bit short of gender diversity. Absolutely, Chris could have had his kilt on, although that wouldn't necessarily have solved the gender problem. But that's only because one or two others who were to be on the panel, sadly, were unable to come at the last minute, including Victoria Haywood of Darkem, who was, I think I'm right in saying, Gloucestershire's first mechanical engineer, the first female mechanical engineer to qualify some years ago. So sorry not to have Victoria with us. Let me just introduce the panel very briefly. Chris Wilson, immediately beside me, is the Chief Executive of the Safran Group in the UK, which includes, of course, most well known to many people in Gloucestershire, the manufacturing business of the landing gear at Staverton, but also there's a big maintenance and repair organisation as well, and he'll tell us more about a couple of the other companies. And then beside him, we've got Paul Laerty from GE Aviation, the American group that plays such an important part in Gloucestershire Aerospace, and we'll hear more from him about that. And then next to him, of course, is Henry Johnston of Doughty Propellers, which is part of the GE Aviation group, but has retained its original brand name. And the legacy and history of that is something that any of us who've had the chance to visit his factory is extremely interesting, and a great sort of cultural legacy to build on. Also with us, although he's a little bit further away, but Sean, we'd like you to draw a bit closer and into the camera view, please. I'm afraid there are no prizes for hiding at this event. Sean Hammond of Purtons, the chemicals and coating company, fourth generation family business based here in Gloucester on Eastern Avenue. And just by way of background, when I arrived in Gloucester at the end of 2006, I shall never forget Anthony Purton saying to me that although I had flown small aircraft and been an airline general manager, I knew absolutely nothing about manufacturing, and therefore it was time for me to go and visit all the major engineering and manufacturing companies in Gloucester, and it was as a result of that that I had the chance to first visit Safran and other companies here, and I've never regretted it. So we've had the overview from Catherine Bennett. Let me turn to Chris Wilson of Safran. Chris, this is a difficult time. Catherine mentioned a sort of reduction in 40% of Airbus manufacturing at the moment. How is this affecting your own plans and workforce at Staverton?
So good afternoon. Can you hear me? That's fine. That's good. Well, I'd echo everything that Catherine said about the impact on our industry. We've seen our volumes go down in the landing gear because, she's my customer. Catherine's my customer. Airbus is my customer. Prime customer. 80% of my load goes into them. So we've seen exactly the same volume reduction coming in. It hit us hard through April, May, June, July. We've had to adapt our business, be able to cope with that. The government scheme helped us. The furlough scheme, we've we've been through the last 5 or 6 months with a third of people working from home, a third of people working in the factories, so the people that couldn't work there, so keeping whatever low volumes we had at that stage going, and the rest of people on furlough. So that's helped us sustain. Now, people say, but it's not really saved jobs because we're still having to reduce. Well, we have reduced. We've let contractors go, and we're having a small headcount adaptation that's currently going on at the moment. But the reality of the situation is, if we hadn't, that depth would probably have meant we'd be talking about 40 or 50 people more that would have left the business. Traditionally in the past, the volume would have dropped, you'd have adapted very quickly, and then over time we would have recovered. So it's helped us in certainly getting through that process. Now, as we look forward, so I don't want to spend time on that because we're coming out the other end of that, and we are seeing, as Catherine says, the volumes are not going to get back to 2019 until 2019 volumes, probably for between 3 to 5 years, and we'll just see. It's all dependent on us getting on airplanes and flying again. So that means we can see a pathway going forward, which is good because Catherine talks about 40 years. I've been in the industry 40 years, and it's a fantastic industry. Apprentices and graduates would join what used to be Smiths. I joined Smiths, it's now GE. Doughty Props was Doughty's, it's now Safran. These companies are all interlinked. So whichever of the aerospace companies you want to go into, the jobs are going to be there, the digital jobs are going to be there. It's essential. It's essential we've got apprentices and graduates. We must learn the mistakes of the past, where in the 80s and 90s when we had big dips, I remember those, we stopped recruiting apprentices, we stopped graduate intake, and that caused a gap in our industry. Now we can close that gap because the digital skills and the digital approach will help us. So I implore people to come into the industry. It is a long-term industry. The aircraft that I first worked on a long time ago, some of them, they're still flying. Those airplanes, it's frightening, but they're still flying. They will still be flying. The aircraft that we're designing now, Jet Zero, it's going to take some time for that to come. But that aircraft, if we can design that, the 747 is probably a 100-year-old aircraft when you think about when the original designs were done to when it finished flying. So we'll see these Jet Zeros. It's going to be long-term. It's going to last for 100 years. People will fly. So I'm really confident, and we are investing. We're continuing to take our apprentices. We shielded and protected our apprentices. We didn't put them into part of adaptation. That's the future, apprentices and graduates, because they are going to come into the business and they're going to make Jet Zero happen in reality. It might take 10 years, but they're the people that will be doing our jobs in the future who are remembering their start days the way I remember my start days with the industry we've got.
That is such an exciting commitment, I think, from one of Gloucestershire's leading aerospace manufacturers to the recruitment of young talent, because it will be, Chris, as you've said, through those young apprentices and frankly their better understanding of the digital world than our generation, that we're going to see the innovation we need to go to the next stage. Now, is that commitment one that you think all of the companies here share? This might be a good moment to pass the baton to Paul of GE Aviation. As you say, all the companies are linked in the sense that you do have major customers that you share. Sometimes you spend time at different employers. But Paul, how do you see it in GE Aviation? Are you continuing to recruit?
Yes, I mean, we had our apprentices here today actually fronting our stands because we see them as the best advert to actually show and explain and answer the questions that people want to ask when people come up. So we didn't have any salesmen or anything. It was those apprentices working the stand in essence. So for us, it was great.
I think one of your apprentices was Jess Faulkner, who came in and made a very powerful contribution to the discussion we were having on opportunities in Gloucester, with a very positive view of how the city is changing and what opportunities there are for young people like her. And it struck me then that that's exactly why aerospace is so important.
I mean, I am a bit of a sponsor for our apprentices because when we do the Cheltenham Science Festival, for example, this year, unfortunately, we didn't do it. We ended up having all of our apprentices once again run those stands because we see them as the people who project the the enthusiasm, not grey old guys who have been in the industry for a long time. It's those that actually do get the youngsters in who are really passionate, and they can tell what it makes and what the industry is opening up for them.
And Paul, tell us a little bit about GE Aviation in Gloucestershire, because you've got several different businesses.
Yes, it's GE Aviation is world renowned for engines, but what we do here in Cheltenham is what we term aircraft systems. So they're fundamentally computer infrastructures or power distribution systems. So the way we describe it is, if you think about the human body, we put the central nervous system in and we put in the brain. So that's how we manage in an aircraft. And if you look at an aircraft content, through the life of that aircraft, the systems content is most probably about 25–30% of the OE cost. But through the life of the aircraft, because it gets upgraded, software upgrades, new equipments, new weapons and such that go on to fighter aircraft, the actual lifetime and cost of the systems content can be about 50% of the value of the aircraft. It's a significant element. And for us here at Cheltenham and in Gloucestershire here, what we've ended up doing is having dual-use products. So we have a lot of equipment on civil aircraft, but we have an awful lot of equipment on military aircraft as well. So the F-35 program has been a major element of the content of the sites that I run. And we have about $1 million worth of equipment on each of those aircraft that get produced.
Does that give you a bit of diversity in terms of customer? I mean, Chris was saying that, of course, for Safran, 80% of his business is with, from the Safran landing gear, is with Airbus. You're doing the F-35 as well, and I suspect some work for Boeing. What dependency does that give you on Airbus?
On Airbus, we're relatively low content on Airbus, but we have a big exposure onto the Boeing platforms. Our business base is about 55% military, 45% civil at the moment in volume production. And what we see is the chance to move technology across from the civil into the military and vice versa. So one of the key things that we've been encouraging the UK government to look at, and particularly to invest in Gloucester, is to say, how are we going to take some of the work that we're looking at, future programs like the Tempest program, where we've recently signed into that team for the campus, to allow us to look at the core technologies that we want to see as sovereign capabilities within the UK, and instead of having them as engines and wings and elements like that, how do we take some of the more computer-based, artificial intelligence-based programs and make them as sovereign capabilities, so that we're looking forward at what technologies are needed, rather than just dealing with the technology we deal with today.
Paul, thank you. That's very helpful. We must come back to a couple of those points in a moment. But I'd like to bring in at this stage Henry from Doughty Propellers. Henry, I see you as the sort of phoenix that's risen from the literal ashes. Your factory burned down not that long ago. You sailed off to Mitcheldean. You've now come back to Gloucester Business Park in a very smart new factory, which appears to be right on the edge of the old Hucklecote Airport, where the first aircraft with a jet engine hopped and skipped down the runway for a few hundred yards. How important, first of all, is this base right on the edge of Gloucester to both the heritage and the future of Doughty Propellers?
Hello, can everyone hear me? So firstly, thank you, Richard, for having me. Really important event, and it's great to be part of a great community here in the Gloucestershire region. I would like to talk about the fire recovery, but just a little reflection when I sit at this panel. When we were at the depths of the fire and the building had just burned down, it was the community that was the first responders at pulling around the business. So although we're not all part of the same organisation, and in some ways competitors, it was help from Chris and Paul. Perkins also helped us out through the fire recovery. The whole community, the aerospace community, really pulled together. It is very, very tight community. So we compete hard, but also we do look out for each other as well. So I wanted to say thank you for that. Yes, it was really important for us to remain in the region. The technology that we use, both in the design and development of our propeller systems, and also the technical depth of all of our operators on the shop floor, because it's a very complex and unique build process, was so important, and actually was the major driver when we selected the site. We really selected it looking at where people lived from our employee base, because we wanted to retain those critical skills in the business. We saw it as fundamental to our success, and really was a very easy sell within the business as to, okay, well, you know, you burn down your entire facility, you have a complete clean slate, and there was really no debate as to where it was going to be from that perspective.
That's very encouraging to hear, Henry, because I think one of the points that comes over in this panel is the importance of a cluster of major businesses and suppliers. And it seems to me that for as long as Airbus is fully committed to this country and our manufacturing, then that list of 16, I think, suppliers that Catherine alluded to, and the fact that you are all there to help each other, occasionally to poach each other's talent, but also to increase the skills, share the talent. I like that phrase from Chris. You know, it does seem to me incredibly important, and we would be much weaker as a county and as a city if any one of you were to disappear and fragment what is such a core sector to the county. So it's really good to hear. Henry, looking at what your colleague Paul has just been saying about continuing to recruit apprenticeships, and Chris said the same thing for Safran, I know that Doughty Propellers is a smaller company in terms of numbers of people, but how important is it to you to go on, if you like, recruiting and investing in young talent?
Absolutely essential. I think I'll tell exactly the same story that my two colleagues to the left and as Airbus has said, that there is a bright future in aviation. We do know that people will fly again. I say that we know. I'm very confident that people will fly again. I think aviation is such an important part of our global economy. But what's exciting is we have got the climate challenge. There is a lot of technology that needs to be developed if we're going to step up to the commitments we've all signed up to as countries.
What does that mean for you? Can you give us an example of how Doughty Propellers is adapting to a sort of greener world?
Well, I think one of the areas that we're talking about is what will the propulsion systems for future aircraft look like? And certainly, you know, there's a lot of concepts that are out there, and what I'm pleased that a lot of them, particularly on hybrid electric, have got propellers on them, or you know, open rotors on them, which are very similar to propellers. And the ability to use electric motors and distribute them over the aircraft and putting propulsors in different areas is really exciting, but comes up with different technological challenges. We take our pitch change hydraulic oil from the engine, but if the engine's not there, we have to develop new pitch change systems. It's new control laws and how you manage the propeller pitch change during the flight. So a lot of development is needed, and actually a lot of new thinking is needed. So we see it's really important to keep refreshing our talent pool and keep the cutting edge coming on.
Yeah, that is such a good message that's coming through today, and I think anyone young in Gloucester hearing that at school, college or university is hearing that aerospace is going to invest in young people. They need you badly, they need your skills. And for those of you who are concerned about the environment as well, this is not a sector that's saying it doesn't apply to us. This is a sector that's saying we have to change, we're going to do it, and we're going to need your help with new skills to do that. I think those are both very positive messages. Sean, I'm looking towards you because traditionally, you know, a coatings company has always played an important part in the aerospace industry, but of course in other sectors as well. How big is your dependence on aerospace today?
Well, again, thank you very much for inviting us, and I appreciate the time. it's affected us quite badly. The civil aerospace side of things, certainly within our group, is a major part of our business, or was. And but we are adapting, and it's quite interesting to understand our client base, because we don't always know where components are going into, what they end up doing, and we are absolutely involved in the ventilator challenge side of things, which again shows the engineering skills of this base within Gloucestershire. And surface coatings are a major part of an engineered piece of equipment, where the guys are talking about trying to reduce cost, weight, improve efficiency. A very thin layer of something quite clever can aid the process of the part operating correctly. So out of that, we've there's a lot of the military defence side of the business that we deal with, a lot of food and drug equipment, and again we have that engineering base in Gloucestershire that is able to produce equipment and produce the drugs. So we're not necessarily coating the part itself, we're coating the bits that make the bits, if you like. So yeah, we're having to diversify, but we have our apprentice scheme as well, and that is a great business to be in. We're developing new coatings all of the time, and we don't always know what they're going to go on to be perfectly honest, but at the same time we're trying to sort of proffer those to the guys that say, well, we've got this, maybe it'll help out with the process.
So that's a commitment to continue to invest in your apprenticeship scheme, which has always been there. You've had the adverts on Eastern Avenue for those with eagle eyes as you drive along. Yeah. And the business, I think I'm right in saying, did grow in terms of total numbers of employees by at least doubled over the last 10 years. Inevitably, that's going to be hard to maintain without some reductions at the moment. But I hope that your business, like the other ones we've just been discussing, will benefit from these longer term changes, because people are going to carry on flying and needing to fly. And of course, you've got other customers as well. Can we touch on the skills bit a little bit with all of you on the panel? Chris, you and GE Aviation are both partners of Gloucestershire Engineering Training, which was on the verge of being swallowed up and disappearing in 2008 to 9, and has since gone from strength to strength. It's now, I think, taking on about 3 or 4 times the numbers of apprentices for you and other businesses in aerospace, and not just aerospace. To what extent do you think that GET is a vital ingredient of the talent that you're trying to train?
Well, I think again, it's one of those essential partnerships that's been going for quite some time with GET, and our apprentices will go through certainly their first year there. I mean, I would mention one thing none of us have mentioned is diversity. And I've got to put a plea out there. We need diversity of apprentices. One really good example to any of the youngsters that are out there wanting to come into the industry, please come forward from whatever group, male, female, whatever. I think it's so important. Last year, our MRO Apprentice of the Year won the National Apprentice of the Year award, and she went through GTEC. She's actually launching with GTEC a new program around maintenance, because she wants to get into maintenance, machine maintenance. So,
and she's a Gloucestershire girl.
She's a Gloucestershire girl, yeah.
Well, that's a fantastic story. Is that the first time ever that an aerospace apprentice in Gloucestershire has won the National Apprentice of the Year award?
Well, ever I don't know, but certainly it's the first time I can remember a national award. It was a very special moment.
It's a huge achievement.
Business. But those skills are fundamental. It's the base skills, and working in collaboration with the GTEC, they're going to help us with the digital skilling at the bottom level, that gets the start, the foot in the run. Because as you say, someone's been around a long time. You know, computers filled this room when I was an apprentice. So computers now we carry them around with us all the time. The digital world is there. The digital skills are essential, and working in collaboration with GTech is a good example of where we get benefits with that.
Great. I'm conscious time is running out a little bit, but a quick soundbite from GE Aviation on the importance of skills training being available locally and whether we've got the right mix of courses to give you the skills you need. Paul.
We run 3 levels of courses in our organisation. One is we term Edison, so they're graduates who've come into our organisation, already graduated, and then they go through a higher degree. We then use the local facilities around our apprentices. And for us, without it, we would struggle. Talking about diversity, about 20% of our engineering employees are females. We need to get that level up nationally. Lots of big companies, ourselves and BE and Airbus and everybody, are all been trying to attract females to the engineering community. And we've set up a role where we have this thing called Girls Get Set. And we've been running it for 10 years now. And it's got some national awards where it's all aimed at bringing females into engineering. And I have to say, those individuals who come in, and you've got several that have moved across to yourself, they've been fantastic advocates for engineering first and then female second. And they've made such an impact. And I'm passionate about it because when you see them out there, they're the best advocates for this industry and for technology.
Paul, fantastic. Look, there's so much more that we could say on this issue, both of diversity and training, but I'm conscious that we've probably run out of time. And if I can try and wrap this all up, what we've heard today is of the commitment by some of the largest suppliers to Airbus in the country, aerospace manufacturers with a long history going back in some cases 60, even 70 years in the county, more still, not just in Chris's lifetime, and the opportunities for young people in our schools to come and get those extraordinary opportunities, and perhaps especially young women. So anybody listening to this session about aerospace, if you're young and you're interested and you're digitally aware and you want to pursue these opportunities, and especially if you're female, please be in touch with Safran, the GE Aviation Group, including Doughty Propellers and Pertons. And on that note, can you join me in thanking the panel very much for this session this afternoon? Thank you.